My name is Supporter Pets Farmer 21927, and I have something to say about making the most out of your life during junior college. This video is going to be me talking about how I made the best out of my time in JC, at least in my opinion. And I hope it'll guide any juniors and future generations of JC students. I feel that with O level results releasing, it's a better time than ever to talk about this. Although, to be honest, most of the things I'll mention probably aren't going to be JC specific. I truly believe you can transform your life in poly, ITE, international school, or anywhere else. This is just from my experience from the road that I've personally taken. This video will probably be pretty long, so I promise I'll put timestamps or something. Okay, so to give some context, before JC, I did pretty well on my PSLE, so I managed to enter RI in Sec 1 under the integrated program, which lets us skip O levels and go straight to Raffles JC. So I was just kind of cruising and doing my own thing the first 4 years. I never really thought too much about what career I wanted to do after school. I was more of the type of guy to just do what I wanna, just do what I will have to do, study a bit, play video games at home, or go out with friends and have fun. I never really had any goals or aspirations other than a reasonably high GPA that wouldn't make my mom mad. That was about it. But what ended up happening was, because I had no goals, I kind of just had a lack of initiative, and I ended up doing a lot of things that were really unfulfilling to me. So for example, because I wasn't talented at anything, right, I was forced into a CCA for 4 years called National Cadet Corps, or NCC. It's a uniform group, and if you know, you know. It's just kind of marching around in circles for 2 hours straight, uh, 2 times a week. So yeah, to me that was really just such a waste of time. I didn't enjoy myself at all. Literally, I hated it so much to the point where uh, it sort of spurred me to start skipping sessions. And so, entering JC, I had zero leadership positions. I had decent grades, like mostly A's and B's. I had a D in Chinese, and some other stuff. But most importantly, I felt like I hadn't accomplished much. And especially from RI, you get to see all the people around you doing different things. You're surrounded by the best pianists in the nation, the best tennis players in the nation. Um, Everyone around you seems to be an expert at something, maybe badminton or swimming or art. Meanwhile, I had no accolades to speak of. I was a bummer, basically. Um, the only hobbies that I kind of had at the time were video games, coding, and gym. But I kind of did all of those at like a semi-amateur to intermediate level, so like I wasn't the GOAT or anything. But going into JC, I don't know why. I just suddenly thought like, this ain't it. I can't be a bum forever. It's always fun being a bum until you realize that very soon you'll be an actual adult, and you're just gonna be a fucking NEET, and at that point no one's gonna have any sympathy for you. So I wanted to change something and make the most out of my life instead of playing video games. By the way, I had like a really bad video game addiction. Honestly, I still kind of do a bit. From Sec 1 to Sec 4, I've probably sunk in about 2,000 hours into this video game called Valorant. And so that kind of took up most of my free time. But yeah, after I entered JC, I committed myself to, basically like turn my life around. And I felt it was pretty successful. Like, through the 2 years, I founded 2 startups. I published a research paper on AI in a prestigious conference. I got hired to do professional work in what I found to be my dream job. I made a lot of new friends, and I took hobbies that had previously been recreational to the competitive level, and like actually competing to try to make national team and stuff. I also joined the CCA, which I was a complete noob at, and made the school team where we did pretty well in NSG. All the while, I would say I had decent grades. I ended promos with like all A's except 1B, and then coming to JC2, my predicted grades were maxed out with a H3. I've probably missed out on more, but the point I'm trying to get is like I managed to make a really good use of my time in JC. I achieved shit that I never thought I was capable of. I became very efficient. I spent my energy to the fullest, and most importantly, I achieved some of my goals. Not all, but some. From this journey, I've kind of learned a lot of things, and I want to share some of the tips that I feel were the most important that I would give myself if I was re-entering JC again. Okay, so to start off, before you go any further, you have to set clear goals that matter to you. So if you're watching this, I think it's safe to assume that you want to improve your state of life, right? You've probably already identified something that you're not satisfied with. You know, maybe it's something with the way you're living your life, or you have a aspiration that you want to strive towards. What is the final state that you wish to improve your life to? And I'm not asking you to have a clear vision of that. It's okay, like you don't need to know everything, but just having an idea is really good. So for example, you know, you say you wanna get NSG gold, or you wanna start making 10k a month, or you wanna get your dream physique. And by the way, this is the time where you should be ambitious. You know, this is not the time to be realistic. I always encourage people when they set goals to always set them to their heart's desire. The realism, you know, it can come later, when you're actually on that path. But yeah, really write down and figure out the goals that your heart truly chases. The goals that would be like the absolute dream for you. And so for my second year of JC, I actually wrote down the goals that I aimed for that year in around December of the previous year. So some of the goals included like representing Singapore powerlifting on the national team, getting 3,000 users into my startup, getting a certain score on the SAT, which is like a test to go into USA colleges, and getting 70 RP on my A levels. So these were just a few to start off. I'll be frank and say that most of the goals I didn't actually achieve, although the whole time I never really stopped chasing them. Like, I was always relentless about it, and I always tried to progress, but sometimes, you know, it just doesn't work out. But even though, you know, most of the goals I didn't achieve them fully, I still achieved them partially, which made me kind of happy. So for example, like the startup user goal, I didn't make it to 3,000 users, but I made it to like 1.5k. From 0 to 1.5k, you know, it's not that bad. I hope. I'm pretty proud of it still. Like, and then yeah, setting clear goals will really sharpen your vision into what really matters to you and what you're gonna focus on. Our lives are so noisy, so this really just helps to cut through all the bullshit and sort of pave a clear roadmap to achieve our goals. Now, I truly do believe that planning is like half the battle. If you can make a good plan to achieve your goal, then the chances of you actually achieving it goes way higher. Like, please set clear goals to kind of create a North Star in your life, so that every day, you know, even if you wake up feeling like shit, or you have nothing to do that day, you still kind of have a sort of purpose, which is to achieve the goals that you set out to accomplish. And not to forget, set goals that matter to you. Like, they don't have to matter to anyone else. Not me, not your mother, not your friends. Like, as long as it matters to you, I feel that it's a goal worth chasing. Speaking of goals, if any of you guys are curious about applying to universities in the USA or have a certain dream college in the US as one of your life goals, I can help you with that. I've spent more than 300 hours writing applications to Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, MIT, Columbia, so I know how confusing the application process can be. If you have any questions about applying to the US, how to build an application that will get you into your dream school, you're welcome to contact me in the description below where we can talk about it. Okay, moving on. Next, be respectful of your own time. Now, what does this mean? Time is really the scarcest resource that you're going to get in JC, and I feel like people kind of know this, but they're not conscious about it. Now, keep in mind, we are young, okay? You're like 16, 17 years old going in, your neuroplasticity is probably pretty high, your cognitive ability is close to its peak, and not to mention, you have tons of energy. So, I always feel like time is our biggest constraint, and at the same time, our most valuable asset. So think about how much time we're willing to allocate to our goals of, let's say, studying for 70 RP or working on CCA stuff. We have to be conscious about this. We can't just autopilot and let one single activity consume the whole day without us noticing. We have to be conscious about how we allocate our time because our time is precious. There's a saying that if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you'll be an expert in that thing. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't fucking know. But what I know is that your time is your currency to improve. You can learn with time, you can practice with your time. It's so valuable, so please try to conserve as much of it as possible and don't waste it on quote-unquote meaningless things. By the way, sleep is something that you should try not to sacrifice. Although sometimes really bo pian, then I understand. But you can definitely cut down on your doom scrolling, surely. So for example, how I planned around this in JC was I picked a subject that I knew I was very comfortable in. I mentioned before that I had a hobby of coding, right, before entering JC. And JC actually offers a subject called H2 computing. So I took it, and it was one of the best decisions in my JC life, in my opinion, because I practically learned the whole computing syllabus in my own time. Not consciously, but like from watching YouTube videos and just kind of learning coding as a hobby. So during computing lessons, this allowed me to spend time on other subjects or other projects, and over time this really does add up. My computing teacher can testify. This is why I always recommend to people, when they choose what subject combination they want to do, they should always try to prioritize the subjects that you're actually good at, so that you don't spend too much time struggling in them. Of course, there's caveats and whatnot. Like if you're really super duper interested in the subject, then you should probably also take that. But this is my general rule. One of my friends who was like the smartest literature student I've ever met, he got near full marks on every exam. But for some reason he chose H2 Econs in JC instead of H2 Lit. And I never really understood that decision of him. Like, he completely struggled all the way till prelims with economics, and he quite regretted it in the end. Also, one more thing on being time efficient. Like, try actually listening during class. I know a lot of people, even RI as like a so-called top JC, they just goof around in class. No one really listens to lectures unless you're really locked in. So I think I fell into this category of just like dozing off during lectures, not focusing at the task at hand or just talking with friends. Then when it's time to do the tutorial at home, you're just fucked. You're lost and you don't know what's going on, and then you have to relearn the whole shit. Or even worse, your parents send you to tuition. Wow, that one is the worst. You don't want to be patching up your knowledge gaps at home, which takes up time and is like really inefficient. You want to just do it in school. The smartest people I know who all got straight A's, from Sec 1 all the way to JC, they all really had this common trait of doing their homework on time and listening with 100% focus during lectures, really absorbing all the knowledge. And because of that, they were really time efficient. This discipline adds up over time, I feel. And one of my friends who's right now he's a PSC scholar, he only ever studied 1 to 2 hours a day, and I can testify because I've known him for like 6 years. Even during exam season, max 2 hours a day. I mean that sounds crazy, right? But trust me, most of you listening to this can be like them. You don't want to be thrown into long tuition classes that suck up most of the day, especially on school days. You'll just be exhausted having tuition on top of your classes and your CCA. So please be efficient and disciplined with your time. Another big thing is when you're looking to improve in a skill or a certain aspect of life is to always get a coach or get a mentor, someone who is more experienced or has mastered the skill or attribute which you're striving for. Basically get their guidance lah, because really it will save you a lot of time. Like I said just now, the quote about the 10,000 hours to be a master at something. Now I'm pretty sure if you get the right guidance and coaching, you can probably cut that time down by half. The coaches or people with more experience than you have failed before they've succeeded. They know what doesn't work, and they can guide you along the right path, which will help you reach where you want to be so much quicker. You can find a coach for like anything, honestly. I did powerlifting, so it was only my second year of the sport where I got a powerlifting coach. Shout out Tristan. And through him, I realized that I've been doing so many things completely wrong, like from how I bench press to how I squat to even like how I eat. But for let's say studies, you want to get good at a subject, right? You can just find a friend who's already cracked at it, and then kindly ask them to mentor you. Ask them questions, seek their advice and their guidance, and act upon it. Trust them. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. This method really did help bring my econs from. I'm pretty sure I was failing, at one point, and then I brought it to B's and A's. So shout out David and Jaden. You guys are the GOAT. I think it really did help that in RI, everyone's kind of their own specialist in a certain way, and so you really have all these really crack people to get advice from. But what happens, say, when you don't have a person to get advice from? Like, let's say I want to get good at, I don't know, underwater ballet. Wait, that's a shit example. What am I saying? Let's say you want to get good at sales negotiating for some reason. Okay, but you don't know anyone your age or any adult who does that. You might be kind of lost. So one thing you can do, and I highly encourage people to do if you're a JC student, is to either start reading books. Books. Yeah, no one reads nowadays, I realize, but like books are pretty goated. If you wanna upskill yourself, or get an AI subscription to an AI chatbot. I might be a bit biased cause like I'm like a quote unquote like AI guy. But I truly believe that subscribing to one of these AI chatbots like Anthropic Claude or ChatGPT Pro or Gemini by Google will be really helpful for you. These AI models have been trained on basically the entire internet's worth of data, so they're basically experts in most domains. Like imagine having an expert PhD level person to ask like the stupidest questions to at any time. It really is a blessing to anyone trying to improve themselves in the 21st century. Now, the thing is, you're not bogging anyone down. You're also not a burden to your mentor or anything when you're doing this. I mean, because your mentor is an AI, right? Like, you can just spam it with as many questions as many times as you need to. Personally, I've had close to like 2,000 chats with Claude, which is the AI chatbot from Anthropic. Given I only subscribe in JC1, there's about 2.7 chats a day, every day for 2 years. And I will say that AI has helped me learn a lot of different things from, let's say, like in GP where I had to research specific case studies. I could ask the AI to do that for me. Or I can ask it to explain a certain concept a bit more deeply, which sometimes, it may stray off the syllabus standard, but most of the times it really does provide quite a helpful response, breaking down things to first principles. So you get my point. I feel like everyone should get a mentor. Like, you could even use ChatGPT as like a live mentor. You can ask it to weigh different decisions, tell it about your context, and then ask it which one is a wiser choice. Now, don't quote me on that though. Like, don't take it too far. But during prelims and A's, I used ChatGPT to plan out a sustainable revision schedule that works for me, and it really did help me to avoid burning out. The sky like really is the limit. I wholeheartedly encourage every JC student to grab themselves some kind of AI chatbot subscription. You know, not to like crutch on it and use it to like full solve your homework, but use it as a companion and a mentor to guide your own development. Okay. Next, one important thing that will determine whether or not you actually achieve your goals is your mindset. Your mindset will guide your actions, your thought processes, your decisions, everything. One common thing that I always notice around me is people love to bitch and whine and complain, especially Singaporeans are. We just don't seem grounded in the fact that we live in Singapore, which is in itself already such a privilege. We have a debatably convenient public transport system. Everyone has housing. Most of us don't have to scavenge for food or fight in a war. So we live incredibly good lives and enjoy some of the highest quality education in the world. That being said, we ought to learn to be more grateful for the things that we have. I feel like most people aren't actually aware of how much blessings they've been given. They sort of take it for granted over the years, and I feel like this can end up costing them in the long run. If you are well off and have ambitions, I implore you to recognize your privilege and pursue your dreams to the fullest with the resources that you have. And by the way, I've come to find that money really can open most doors of opportunity. Now, for those people who don't have much, who are not as affluent as your peers, I want to tell you that your grateful mindset, your mindset to be relentless, to never give up, to never take things for granted, not to bitch and to whine, is going to take you so much farther than your peers in the long run. This is something that might not be that intuitive, or it might be hard to believe, but once you really implement it and you understand what I mean by cultivating a healthy, grateful mindset, I promise you will see the world like so much more differently, and you will see much different results. Another thing is like we should be conscious of our environment, mainly the people whom we surround ourselves with. Now, personally, I feel I'm a weighted sum of everyone whom I've ever interacted with. I think a lot of you can relate, right? We tend to follow similar tendencies as our close friends and family. The idea is to surround yourself with people who care about you and care about supporting you to help you reach your goals. Am I saying to switch up on all your day ones? For most of you, probably not, but everyone's circumstances differ. Some parts of our environment are out of our control, and understandably so, with the biggest example being the family that we're born into. But if they're not supportive of your aspirations, at least have a couple friends who are. And it definitely helps if they're working towards similar goals, because then you guys can feed off each other's energy in a mutualistic way. I hope you guys don't confuse this with being a selfish snake who uses others for their own benefit. That's really the last thing you should be doing, because then you lose all the trust and faith and care of everyone around you. The journey of you achieving your goals, contrary to the popular beliefs of alpha male speakers like Andrew Tate and whatnot, this journey is a team game. The team here is you and the people around you who care about you. Similarly, you're on their team, right? So drawing back to what I said earlier about having a mentor, if you're playing this game completely alone, you're doing it wrong. Alright, that was a lot. Now I want to talk about something that I feel like I'm quite passionate about, which is seizing every single opportunity that comes before you. Or if every opportunity is an exaggeration, then at least consider every opportunity. Some things in life really only come once. We're only getting older, and I realize that with these goals that we want to achieve, we really can't avoid to be hesitant. It's all about acting fast, seizing chances and opportunities to improve and work towards our goals at every corner. And so when I actually first entered JC, I had no idea that I wanted to do anything entrepreneurial. I did sign up for my school's entrepreneurial club, but I got rejected. So I was like, yeah, fuck these guys. I'm not that into it anyways. But but during the middle of the year, I saw an opportunity. You know, one of the teachers in the school, shout out Mr. Chan. He created a new program on the JC side, which was basically like a startup accelerator type of thing. I saw one of the ideas that he was pitching, and I was like, yeah, this seems pretty cool. So I talked to him about it, and then we eventually ended up converting the idea into a startup with a wonderful team that we ended up integrating into the school. And so that's how I kind of became a AI startup co-founder, where we eventually went around pitching at various startup events around Singapore, and then eventually to OpenAI. The biggest thing I would say is to be brave and step out of your comfort zone. The only way to grow is to step out of our comfort zones, really. You really don't want to be doing things that everyone else is doing, because then you'll never progress faster than the average. And the average, I'll be honest, the average person doesn't really progress that much. You have a goal that you want to accomplish, you have to be proactive. And I fucking hate this excuse people tell me, oh, but I don't want to do this cause someone said this thing is trash, or my mom told me that this thing is not worth it. Okay, who cares what other people think? Who cares what your mom thinks? You're gonna listen to what your mom thinks your whole life? Your mom is not the one achieving your goals. You are. Like, it's genuinely baffling that people cannot make decisions for themselves at this big age. Genuinely get a grip and take back control over your own life, please. I promise you. Make your own evaluation on every opportunity. Most of the time, people love to whine and bitch, and when they don't want to seize an opportunity, they'll try to convince other people to not seize that opportunity too, because they get FOMO, right? And when people see someone else doing something that, maybe is unique or against the norm, their first instinct is always to hate. Why? I don't really know, but it seems really prevalent in Singaporean society. I mean, you look around us, right? There's, I think the most recent one that comes off the top of my head, probably like Rayston Heem. Everyone seems to hate on that guy for no reason. I think this is a natural feeling, like this feeling of envy and jealousy when we see our peers, surpass us. But I really want to discourage this kind of mentality. Like, in the long run, it's really you versus you and you shouldn't be looking at what everyone else is doing, because their journey is gonna be way different than yours, despite what you think you see on the surface. Okay, back to the topic. So please, make your own decisions for yourself. I tried so many new things in JC, from volunteering to doing a sport which I haven't done in close to a decade, running a startup, preparing for Olympiads. I had never done any of these things in my life before, and all of these were new to me. I genuinely grew so much from every single thing that I embarked on. And sometimes these opportunities aren't plainly available to you. Like, let's say, getting sent to your school email that your school is starting this new program. Sometimes you really have to find the opportunities that you want, especially if your goal is more niche or specific. I'll give you an example. Okay, my AI research journey. So I had never done AI research before JC. Like I said, I was more of like a software engineer type coder. Just code a few apps or maybe a few scripts for fun, but never this complicated math slash AI shit. So it's so nerdy, right? I didn't think I was smart enough for that. But then suddenly I had to work on a research project that I signed up for, and I was like, hey, this is probably an opportunity for me to challenge myself, right? The problem is, how the fuck do I go about learning AI research, right? Isn't this a thing that only PhDs are supposed to do? Am I just gonna look up on YouTube and find it? So I didn't have a good mentor at the time as well. I was assigned an A-star mentor to my group, which is like a premier research institution locally. But the thing is, he barely spoke English. So when we communicated with him, we had to communicate through ChatGPT basically. So it was really hard to get mentorship. And I had to find the opportunity of learning myself. So what I did was I started watching tons of YouTube videos about AI research, read tons of research papers, learn how to understand the different jargon and how research works. And then eventually I found a few researchers which are like, hey, I really like their work, right? It seems really cool. So I just straight up cold email them or, DM them on Twitter, and I'm like, hey, here's who I am. I love your research. Do you have an hour to chat about it? And yeah, I'll be honest, most of them ended up saying yes and ended up guiding me on my research journey. I feel really blessed for that. But it's less about the fact that they said yes and more about the fact that I took my own initiative and sought out the opportunities myself to grow. Please don't expect everything to be spoon-fed to you. This is your own journey, and if you really want to achieve your goals, you have to commit. If I hadn't taken the initiative to reach out to those random researchers who right now I ended up being friends with most of them, but if I hadn't reached out to them, my research project would have probably failed spectacularly, and nothing would have probably came out from it. This is your own journey. People always say like, what if I fail? Well, at least you tried. I would say most JC, after they graduate, like, they fall into dilemmas about choosing their uni major, not because they don't know what they like, but they don't know what they don't like. In fact, it's abnormal, I feel, not to fail at all. You should embrace failure. And this is also why I feel you shouldn't be worried with spreading yourself thin with commitments in JC, because over time you'll be able to suss out the ones that you hate, which ones you love, and you can shape the most fulfilling life for yourself. When I first entered JC, I thought, since I like coding, I should join the robotics club, right? And so I did. I ended up competing at this competition called RoboCup with them. I had a really great time, but then around April of JC1, I kind of felt that something's not right. Like, I wasn't feeling fulfilled, so I ended up completely switching gears and going to football instead, where I had like the most fun I've had in those 2 years. I feel was from football. So I really, really, really implore you to take risks and shape the life that you want to live instead of autopiloting. Now, I already know that some little bitch is gonna come in and say, okay so you just work all day you don't hang out with your friends Okay, maybe to pursue some big goals, maybe sometimes some people will choose to sacrifice their social life, but that's not the idea, right? The idea is to stop fucking autopiloting and actively seek out the life that makes you happiest. If being in a relationship makes you fulfilled, then do that. If hanging out with your friends makes you fulfilled, then do that. I encourage you to chase what your heart desires. But of course, do a diligent cost-benefit analysis. Take into account what matters to you in both the short and long term, so that when you look back on your JC life in 5 years, you'll be able to think of it fondly instead of wondering, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Okay, that's all for now. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me through the video description. I probably won't actively respond to comments. I love to hear your goals and try my best to help you out. This video was inspired by the YIJC 90RP video, so I highly encourage you watch that as well. Now, I know for sure some people might be pissed off that I don't actually give super clear, hyper-specific, concrete advice, but that's kind of the point, I feel. Only you can define what matters to you. Even if you and we share the same goals, our paths might be totally different depending on our social circles, family situations, priorities, and responsibilities. So, what is transforming your life to you? Is it escaping the matrix and achieving financial freedom? Is it having a healthy long-term relationship? Once you figure that out, I implore you to take risks to achieve it and make yourself happy. Bye bye.